This is the InkJournal Black Notebook for pen and ink collecting. I want to spend some time to go through it and see what makes this ink journal very unique. So first right off the bat is the the graphic, the nib graphic there. It's a black and white, has a little bit of some social media connection on the back here with the ink bottle graphic, and the cover is a matte finish, which has a very smooth sort of velvety sort of texture to the cover stock. It's been in my bag and whatnot, so it's kind of taken a bit of a beating, but has held up pretty well. So I have a few stickers that I've accumulated in here. Front inside page cover here with some nice pens. And first thing that people usually like to take a look at, the index, which is it's a numbered index. So if you see each of the bottles that are next to the nib have a page number, so you'd be able to look at a glance what inks are in this notebook. So if, let's say, you were looking for reference to say, okay, well, when was the last time or what did that particular ink look like when I got a sample of it? Well, you'd be able to look right at a glance, see what inks are in this notebook, and just say, oh, there was the last time I had used, let's say, J. Urban Café des Ilis. Was my best pronunciation of it, or Sailor Gentle Epinard. You could say, okay, well, let's just flip on over to page 22. Oh, there's our J. Urban ink. You could take a look at it. It's a nice chocolatey brown here. So the format kind of takes into account what typically is relevant in recording a particular ink and pen combination. So first off, we really start with, we want to have the pen brand on, or the ink brand on there. We have the date is up at top there, so you can format it whichever way you like. And we have the color. And then we also have the pen and the nib, which is whimsically represented in an actual nib in the format for the diagram. And then we have the quick brown fox, which essentially is your panagram. It's whatever sentence that you like to write that includes one of each letter in the alphabet. So I picked when zombies arrive, quickly fax Judge Pat. So then we have a few characteristic: flow, saturation, shading, and also water resistance. And we have a few passes if we just scribble over a few times and see how dense or how saturated the ink can become when you overlay it a few times. Then we also have the dry time, which I typically would do is I would go and write with the ink or circle the numbers and then count the seconds and then try to wipe it. And then if I'm able to still continue to wipe it and it still smears, then I continue on as I go and I say, okay, well, it was about 15 seconds, which is pretty decent. It's not too bad. So I've seen a lot of inks that on this paper will last up to 25 to 30 seconds until they finally become dry. And then of course we have our comments drip test, where we can throw some water on top of the paper and then see how the ink reacts after you write on it, to see if it wipes completely away or if it still leaves a ghosting or just doesn't even get affected by the water. And we have our additional comments, and what's really helpful, I think, is the comparison part, where you could write the name of the ink as you're entering in the system here, and then you could put other inks that could be in the same color family, maybe the same pen, or maybe in the same brand, just so that you'd be able to kind of see as a point of comparison. All this is a little bit more subdued than the Edelstein amethyst ink, which seems a bit more vibrant, a bit more purpley, with is more of a dusty purple. And then you have the Storia Magic Purple, which has a different, is like a less reddish lean to it, and seems a bit more on the lighter side. And then your final, just a final quick thought on it. Is this something that you would use again? Something that it's okay, or something that, man, I know I need to have a bottle. I know I need to have a lot of this ink to continue on. This is a really awesome ink that I've really enjoyed. And I don't really enjoy purples that much, but this was a really good one. Yeah, so we got a nice sample here with the amethyst. And you know, with any type of notebook, even you know your better papers, it's really hard to you know, to kind of go without having any sort of ghosting through the back of the page, especially when you're using like italic nibs and you know, stub or flex nibs. But this paper handles the ink pretty well. Here you have a little bit of bleed through from flexing with the Neponsit fountain pen. Was flexing on that page and kind of dug through and got to this side of the page here. But really, it's not, doesn't obstruct the ability to review the ink and to see the ink on the paper. It's not that thin where you would clearly see the ink that's on the other side of the page. It holds it pretty well. As you can see, I'm just trying to flip through. They have Blue Ocean here, but even something saturated like Blue Ocean, look, you can still see part of it through the page. You can see some show through, but it doesn't obstruct the color on the other page, which is important because you want to be able to have each page display the color accurately. And you know, it does also have a decent amount of show for the sheen, or also for shading. So you can see that we have habanero. That's a good amount of shading to it. But if you're looking at the different pages here and you notice that, you know, the color is fairly consistent with, if you've written with any of these inks, that's pretty much what you're going to expect. It's a fairly comprehensive way to be able to catalog completely all of your pens and inks, and you could go on and on with all the different combinations. So even if you have just one, you know, just a very small selection of inks, if you have a large collection of pens, you could try the inks in the different pens and see which ones work better, because yes, the inks do appear different in different pens depending upon like the nib sizes and the flow. So if I looked at, let's say, you know, Emerald of Chavour in a flex, vintage flex, it's going to be different than Emerald of Chavour in an italic nib. So I have it here in the italic nib. I mean, you could really get a sense for, you know, that ink when you put down a lot of it on the page. But when you go with like something that's a little bit finer, you have page 54. You know, it's the evidence is still there for this ink. Like, you could still see the color and, you know, the sparkle and the sheen of it, but not as much as when you throw a lot more ink on that. So it's something to note in every one of these entries is you know, how does the ink stand up to being able to be rinsed out of the pen, or does it cause nib creep on the nib, or does it help or hurt the nib's flow? So it's a lot of things to note. That's why we had created this as a format to capture all of those thoughts. Now you notice the book does not lay flat. So if you want to try to make it lay flat, I would suggest in trying to massage the spine a bit to at least, you know, help with keeping it as flat as possible as you're doing some writing or taking a photo for, you know, to catalog it on social media and whatnot. This is the current list of inks in this book, and I've been switching between this and also the Tomo River paper book that we make, and so there's a lot more inks other than the ones that are here that I've been able to experience in the last year or so. But here's what I've got started so far, and looking to continue on in 2017. Thanks again for watching, guys. Have a great day.